Welcome to Gale News. In the latest news, a 13-year-old girl has left the UK on a Eurotunnel train, may have travelled to Poland with her mother's friend, police have said. Serena Alexander Benson was last seen by her father leaving her home in Wimbledon at about 7:50 British Standard Time on Friday. She was wearing her green school uniform and told him she was going to school but did not arrive. The girl travelled with a female friend of her mother's, a Polish national living in London, police said. Scotland Yard said that although Serena lives with her father in London, her mother lives in Poland. Details of the route Serena and the woman took via Eurotunnel at Folkestone, Kent, are not being released currently by the police. A spokesman said at this stage, the priority of officers is to confirm Serena's exact whereabouts and confirm that she is safe. Any potential offences will be considered in due course. In other news, 2 people have died and another person is in critical condition after falling ill at a dance music festival in Hampshire. An 18-year-old woman named locally as Georgia Jones and a 20-year-old man died in separate incidents at Mutiny Festival. Police said the deaths were not being treated as suspicious. 2 others remain in hospital after 15 people were admitted overnight. Organisers cancelled Sunday's event in Portsmouth as a safety precaution. A Queen Alexandra Hospital spokesman said some of the people treated presented with drug-related symptoms. It could not confirm if all 15 illnesses were related to drugs. A statement on Facebook read, "The safety of our amazing customers has always been paramount to us, and so to keep everyone safe, and in respect to those who have passed, we have taken the decision not to open today." The decision was not taken lightly and had been supported by the local statutory authorities, it added. Earlier, the festival at King George V playing fields in Cosham had issued a harm prevention alert, apparently warning about the use of drugs. The message to festival goers described a dangerous, high-strength or bad batch substance on site. Festival goer Liam Blair from Southampton was one of thousands of revellers making their way home early after the event's cancellation. He said closing the festival early was a respectful decision and that there was an atmosphere of shock as news of the deaths spread. "You just don't expect that to happen to people so young," he said. Sophie Wilkinson, 17, said many festival goers had been left annoyed and upset by the decision to close the festival early. "The mood has just dropped," she added. Police were alerted to the woman falling ill at 7:10 British Standard Time PM on Saturday, and the man was found collapsed about 20 minutes later. Both were taken to the Queen Alexandra Hospital, Portsmouth, where they later died. More than 30,000 people were expected to attend the festival, which has been running since 2013, over the weekend. Organisers said on social media that they were devastated about the deaths. In a statement, Hampshire Police said the deaths are being treated as separate incidents at this stage. They are not being treated as suspicious, but inquiries are being made to determine the circumstances of what happened in each case. The force said next of kin had been informed and relatives were being supported by specialist officers. Inquiries are being made into the circumstances of what has happened, but we must reiterate our advice to all of our customers to responsibly dispose of any substances, the statement added. Last year, Hampshire Police called for the minimum entry age to the festival to be increased after reports of sex assaults, drug use and fighting. The force urged Portsmouth City Council to ban anyone under 18 in an effort to reduce crime. It followed reports that children as young as 13 were being allowed to attend. Organisers said there had been revised entry procedures for this year's event. The 2-day festival features artists performing electronic music, including drum and bass, garage, and hip-hop. Dizzy Rascal, Craig David, and Sean Paul are among the big names at the event ending on Sunday. Following the abortion vote in Ireland, the result of Ireland's abortion referendum has no impact on the law in Northern Ireland, the Democratic Unionist Party, the DUP leader, has said. Arlene Foster said the legislation governing abortion is a devolved matter. She said it was for the Northern Ireland Assembly to debate such issues. A number of senior Conservative MPs have called for Northern Ireland's abortion law to be reformed after Friday's historic referendum. Mrs Foster, whose party is propping up Theresa May's minority Conservative government, said a referendum was held in the Republic of Ireland because of the constitutional prohibition that existed there. She had said no such constitutional bar exists in Northern Ireland. Friday's referendum has no impact upon the law in Northern Ireland, but we obviously take note of issues impacting upon our nearest neighbour, Mrs Foster said in a statement. The legislation governing abortion is a devolved matter, and it is for the Northern Ireland Assembly to debate and decide such issues. Northern Ireland has been without a devolved government for almost 18 months, and several rounds of talks between the DUP and Sinn Féin have ended in failure. Dr Sarah Wollaston, chair of Westminster's Health Committee, said women in Northern Ireland should have the same rights as other UK residents. Northern Ireland's abortion law is more restrictive than the rest of the UK. Downing Street is understood to believe that any reform is an issue for Northern Ireland. Prime Minister Theresa May is facing pressure to act after Ireland voted to end its abortion ban in Friday's referendum. But a Downing Street source said it showed one of the important reasons we need a functioning executive back up and running. Northern Ireland has been without a government since January 2017 after a power-sharing deal between the DUP and Sinn Féin collapsed. Mrs May tweeted on Sunday, "The Irish referendum yesterday was an impressive show of democracy which delivered a clear and unambiguous result. I congratulate the Irish people on the decision and all of Together for Yes on their successful campaign." Now, here comes to the political reporter who's mentioned at Saturday's results announcement in Dublin Castle, Sinn Féin's Mary Lou MacDonald and Michelle O'Neill held up a sign saying the North is next. But the other main party in Northern Ireland, the DUP, will be fiercely opposing moves from Westminster or elsewhere to bring about change. The party has deep religious roots and has always said that any relaxation in Northern Ireland's laws could bring about abortion on demand. It has many supporters who feel the same. Nonetheless, the issue is out of Stormont's hands due to the continuing stalemate, and pro-choice campaigners will be focusing their fight at Westminster, which presents a major headache for the Prime Minister. Theresa May will have to walk yet another political tightrope. She won't want to upset the DUP and risk her parliamentary majority, especially at such a crucial time in the Brexit negotiations. But the growing pressure from within her own party and across Parliament on this issue means she'll have to do something. Speaking on BBC Radio 5 Live's Pioneers Politics programme, Dr Wollaston said she and other MPs in favour of abortion reform would put forward an amendment on the issue to Westminster's domestic violence bill. However, she said she was not sure if the amendment would be accepted for debate, as abortion would normally be a devolved issue for Stormont to decide on. The Women and Equalities Minister, Penny Mordaunt, and her predecessors, Amber Rudd, Justine Greening, Nicky Morgan and Maria Miller, have also called for reform of Northern Ireland's abortion laws. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Vince Cable has said Miss May should take advantage of the current lack of a devolved administration and push for reform from Westminster. The position in Northern Ireland is now highly anomalous, and I think probably action will now have to be taken, he said. Sinn Féin's leader Mary Lou MacDonald said she did not want Westminster to legislate for abortions in Northern Ireland, but she argued that Irish law should apply to women from Northern Ireland. I couldn't envisage a situation where women from the North would be precluded from accessing services here in the south, she said. Currently, a termination is only permitted in Northern Ireland if a woman's life is deemed at risk or there is a risk of permanent and serious damage to her mental or physical health. Rape, incest, and fatal fetal abnormalities are not circumstances in which an abortion can be performed legally. A fatal fetal abnormality diagnosis means doctors believe an unborn child has a terminal condition and will die in the womb or shortly after birth. However, anti-abortion campaigners argue that doctors cannot accurately predict death, saying that terminally ill babies can and do defy the odds. There is no restriction on travelling outside Northern Ireland to seek a legal termination in another jurisdiction. Last year, the Westminster government introduced measures to help women from Northern Ireland access free NHS abortions in England. So, why are Northern Ireland's abortion laws different? Anti-abortion group Precious Life said the result of the Republic of Ireland's abortion referendum marked the most tragic day in Irish history. Bernadette Smith said the result would only spur on anti-abortion activists to step up their battle to protect the unborn north of the Irish border. Northern Ireland is now the beacon of hope to the pro-life movement around the world, she said. Jeremy Corbyn is facing pressure from members of Momentum to give Labour members a say on Brexit at the party's annual conference. The left-wing pressure group set up to support Mr Corbyn backs the leadership's position on Brexit, but some members are understood to be anxious that key policy decisions will be made behind closed doors. There is not yet a coordinated effort to push for a conference vote and to debate, a Momentum source told the BBC, but numerous members wanted a debate and the group was keen to support a member-led approach to policy making, the source added. Momentum, which backed Remain in the 2016 EU referendum, organised its members to choose subjects other than Brexit to be debated fully at last year's Labour conference. But according to The Observer, there is a growing clamour among senior Momentum figures and members for a Brexit debate at this year's event. One Momentum member, Omar Raji, told the newspaper on an issue as big as this, it would be unacceptable if we decided to determine our policy behind closed doors. It would be the worst kind of Blairite approach. Mr Corbyn is also under pressure from the centrist Blairite wing of his party for a Brexit vote at the party conference, with 9 senior members of the Progress pressure group joining forces to push for one under the Labour Say.eu banner. Whipping plans. Labour's annual conference in Liverpool will take place in September, weeks before the meaningful vote promised to MPs on the Brexit trade deal that Theresa May is hoping to strike with the EU. Like Mrs May, Mr Corbyn has ruled out staying in the single market when the UK leaves the EU next March and has rejected calls, including from his own MPs, for a referendum on the final Brexit deal. But in a major policy shift earlier this year, he committed Labour to forming a customs union with the EU. And many in his party and the trade union movement group hope he can be persuaded to go further. A recent opinion survey suggests more than 75% of Labour Party members backed another referendum, and 9 out of 10 wanted to stay in the single market. Labour's Deputy Labour leader Tom Watson said no decision has been made on whether Labour MPs would be ordered by party managers to oppose membership of the single market in a series of Commons votes next month on the EU withdrawal bill. We haven't decided our whipping arrangements yet, he said on ITV's Peston on Sunday. We haven't made a decision yet, but we've been pretty clear that there are deficiencies in the Norway model for single market membership that might not work for a bespoke UK deal. The roof of a house was completely destroyed when it was struck by lightning and engulfed with flames. Fire crews were called to the property in Wren Close in Stanway, Essex at 1:38 a.m. BST and found the entire roof of the detached building was alight. No one was fortunately in the property at the time. It is believed the owners are currently on holiday. Neighbour Amanda Williams said she heard a massive bang like an explosion. I just jumped out of bed, she said. I thought we had been hit. The fire took hold very quickly. My husband went running down there to see if the family needed help, but then we remembered they are on holiday. The fire was extinguished by 4:30 a.m. 3 hours afterwards, 5 buildings in Warwickshire were also struck by lightning earlier. According to Warwickshire Fire Service, they mentioned damage to 4 of the premises were minor, but a site in Henley in Arden suffered more damage, with smoke affecting the second floor of an office building. The other buildings affected were in Kenilworth, Nuneaton and Leamington Spa, where 2 were struck. According to a minister, fewer offenders should be locked up. There needs to be a massive reduction in the number of people sent to prison for 12 months or less, ministers say. Prisons Minister Rory Stewart said short sentences should be made offenders more likely to commit crime. He also suggested prisoners released on licence could be used to fill labour shortages in low-skilled jobs caused partly by Brexit. The government is keen to reduce the UK's prison population, which has doubled over the past 25 years. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary David Gauke told The Times 25 years ago the population was 44,000. Today it's 84,000. I would like it to fall. Mr. Stewart said the increase had been driven by longer sentences for violent offenders and many, many more sex offenders. Nearly a quarter of our prisoners now are sex offenders, many of them older men in for historic sex offences, he told the Sunday Politics programme. There were also a lot of prisoners cycling in and out of the system on sentences of a few weeks or even less. In the case of those recalled to jail on licence days, he added. The statistics demonstrate that sending someone to prison for a very short period makes them more likely to reoffend compared to community sentences. So it's not good for them, and it's not good for public safety. Exceptions to any new sentencing guidelines would probably have to be made for violent offenders, he said. And it was important to retain an element of punishment in sentences. Community sentences have fallen out of favour with judges and magistrates in recent years over concerns about their effectiveness amid budget cuts and the part privatisation of the system. But Mr. Stewart said reoffending rates were far too high from short sentences, and they were also disrupting the prison system. He also backed comments by his boss, David Gauke, who suggested prisoners could be let out for the day to work in sectors like catering, construction and agriculture, which were expected to be hit by Britain's departure from the EU. Partly because of Brexit, there is a labour shortage, said Mr. Stewart, which means that prisoners with the right kind of training, the right kind of attitudes, as Pret-a-Manger are finding, or Greggs the bakers are finding, or Timpson's the shoe company are finding, can provide very loyal, good employees. The government has made a series of U-turns on allowing prisoners out to do work under licence, amid concerns some were absconding to commit further crime. Mr. Stewart admitted the government had gone back and forth on issue, but he said prisoners who had a job to go to were less likely to re-offend, and only 1 in 10,000 people released on temporary licence go on to commit a serious crime. In a separate development, Mr. Gauke claimed middle-class drug users should feel guilt and responsibility for fueling the rise in fatal stabbings in the UK. People who do that have to recognise they are fueling the industry that's resulting in the knife crimes, resulting in the difficulties we're having in prisons, Mr. Gauke told Sky's Ridge on Sunday. There's a responsibility for middle-class people that take cocaine at a dinner party, that when they see a story of a 15-year-old boy stabbed in Hackney, East London, they should feel a degree of guilt and responsibility. Police Federation Deputy Treasurer Simon Kempton has also blamed the wealthy for creating the demand for cocaine, while Security Minister Ben Wallace warned the UK was fast becoming the biggest consumer of the drug in Europe. Now, England could have new national parks in response to a Michael Gove review. England could get more national parks after Environment Secretary Michael Gove announced he is launching a review into the country's natural landscapes. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, Mr. Gove said the time is right for a review, nearly 70 years on from the creation of the first national areas. It will consider whether to expand England's network of parks as well as areas of outstanding natural beauty. England has 10 existing national parks, including Dartmoor and the New Forest. It also has 34 AONBs, including the Chilterns, the Cotswolds and the Isle of Wight. According to Mr. Gove, the UK's population growth, combined with changes in technology and a decline in some habitats, meant it was time to look afresh at these landscapes. He stressed that the goal of the review was not to diminish the protection of natural areas, but to strengthen it in the face of present-day challenges. Former government aide and journalist Julian Glover has been appointed to carry it out. Mr. Gove said, "The creation of national parks almost 70 years ago changed the way we view our precious landscapes, helping us all access and enjoy our natural world. We want to make sure they are not only conserved, but enhanced for the next generation, as we properly supporting all those who live in, work in, or want to visit these magnificent places. Should we indeed be extending our areas of designated land?" He added, "I want Julian explicitly to consider how we can extend and improve the protection we give to other precious landscapes." Tony Juniper, the campaign's director for the WWF, welcomed the review, but warned that we need to do more. Nature will continue to be at risk unless we have a plan for its recovery enshrined in law, through a new Environment Act that's backed by a strong watchdog with real power to enforce, he said. England has 10 national parks: the Broads, Dartmoor, Exmoor, the Lake District, the New Forest, Northumberland, the North York Moors, the Peak District, the South Downs, and the Yorkshire Dales. The first national parks to be created were the Peak District, Lake District, Snowdonia, and Dartmoor in 1951. There are 2 in Scotland, the Cairngorms and Loch Lomond, and the Trossachs, and 3 in Wales, the Brecon Beacons, Pembrokeshire Coast and Snowdonia. Mr. Gove said that unlike other nations, national parks are working countryside and lived in by farmers. Finest gems. Mr. Glover, who Mr. Gove called a passionate advocate for the countryside, said our protected landscapes are England's finest gems, and we owe a huge debt to past generations who had the wisdom to preserve them. The system they created has been a strength, but it faces challenges too. It is an honour to be asked to find ways to secure them for the future. I can't wait to get started and learn from everyone who shares an interest in making England's landscapes beautiful, diverse and successful. Margaret Perren, chairwoman of National Parks England, said the announcement was very much welcome and the organisation intended to play a full part. She added, "And as we approach the 70th anniversary of the founding legislation, we look forward to a future where their beauty is enhanced, they are loved and accessible for everyone, and they continue to support thriving communities in these working landscapes. National parks are areas specifically protected because of their countryside, wildlife and cultural heritage, and are funded by central government." Firefighters have been tackling 3 large wildfires which have broken out in different areas of the Highlands. About 30 fire service personnel were trying to contain a heath fire near Sligachen on the Isle of Skye. 6 appliances were called to the scene shortly before 10 a.m. Up to 10 acres of land are thought to have been affected. Efforts were also underway to tackle a wildfire which was reported in the Strathcarron area shortly after 2 p.m. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service were also alerted to a major blaze at Upper Diabag, Torridon, at about 10 a.m. A helicopter was called in to waterbomb that fire, a service spokeswoman said. 4 appliances were at the scene, where firefighters were using paddles to beat the flames. Meanwhile, police are trying to trace 2 vans in connection with the incident at Upper Diabag. A police spokesman said officers would like to speak to any persons who may have been in the area and may have witnessed anything suspicious this morning about 10:15. In particular, officers are appealing to trace 2 males who were seen in the area around that time, who are believed to have been travelling in a small red van, and also the occupants of a white camper van, believed to be a Dutch-registered vehicle. A teenager who died after being stabbed has been named as Lewis Ryan Menzies. Northamptonshire police launched a murder investigation on Friday after the 17-year-old died in Drayton Walk, Kingsthorpe, Northampton. 3 people arrested on Saturday have been released without charge. The force did not say what they had been arrested on suspicion of. Detective Chief Inspector Carl Whiffen said he was keeping an open mind as to the motive for the attack. Mr. Menzies was pronounced dead at Northampton Hospital. A post-mortem examination found he died from a stab wound to the chest. Detective Chief Inspector Whiffen said they had a large team of specialist officers working around the clock to identify and bring to justice whoever is responsible for killing Lewis. We are keeping an open mind as to the motive, and we need the public's help to enable us to track down whoever is responsible for ending his short life, he added. Police have appealed for anyone who was in the Eastern Avenue North or Newham Road areas of Drayton Walk between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Friday to contact them. A 15-year-old boy has been charged with murdering another boy of the same age in Sheffield. The victim was attacked in Lowedges Road in the Lowedges district at about 7:50 British Standard Time p.m. on Thursday. He died about an hour later in hospital. A boy from Lowedges was arrested and later charged over the killing, South Yorkshire Police have said. He is due to appear in court on Monday. A post-mortem examination showed the boy died of stab wounds to the chest. It was the second fatal stabbing in the city in a week. The force said it had been granted special stop and search powers to tackle knife crime. In entertainment news, Rita Ora has paid an emotional tribute to dance producer Avicii as she opened up the 3rd day of the BBC's biggest weekend festival in Swansea. Avicii's name flashed up on the video screens as Ora sang their collaboration Lonely Together, the final single the DJ released before his death in April. "Thank you for singing that with me," she told the crowd as the song ended. "It's always hard for me to sing that, so thank you so much for singing along." Ora has previously described Avicii as a really good friend who changed her life. The Swedish musician born Tim Bergling died last month at the age of 28. A statement released by his family seemed to suggest the cause of death was suicide. Best known for the international hits Wake Me Up and Levels, he had recently retired from touring, saying the lifestyle was taking a toll on his health. After he was found dead in Oman, DJ Pete Tong suggested it was time to establish a support group for musicians who found themselves overwhelmed. Ora is not alone in paying tribute to Avicii. Calvin Harris said he was devastated and called the star a beautiful soul, while Imagine Dragons said the world was a happier and fuller place with his presence. Avicii's family announced last week that his funeral would be held privately in the presence of the people who were closest to Tim. In business news, Theresa May has been urged to stick to the government's timetable for having a vote on Heathrow expansion. A number of business lobby groups have signed a letter saying the government needs to get on with expanding the UK's airport capacity. The BBC understands that the idea for the letter came from Heathrow itself. Transport Secretary Chris Grayling has also been asking business groups to support the expansion plans, the BBC has learnt. The business organisations that signed the letter have all come out in favour of Heathrow expansion in the past. The letter sent to Number 10 said, as Brexit approaches, Heathrow expansion is crucial to making sure the UK remains an outward-looking trading nation and is well equipped to compete on the world stage. For British businesses, the benefits of expansion have always been clear: connections to new markets and trading opportunities with better links with regional airports across the UK, a boost to British exports, and a skills legacy for future generations. The letter adds that the UK is losing ground to competition from European airports. There are many unknowns for businesses surrounding Britain's future trading arrangements, but what is absolutely certain is that our economic success depends on securing Heathrow's future as a leading international airport, it adds. The groups that put their name to the letter were the Confederation of British Industry, the British Chambers of Commerce, the Institute of Directors, the Federation of Small Businesses, the EEF, the Manufacturers Organisation, the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Airport Expansion Lobby Group London First. The BBC understands that these organisations were asked by Heathrow to lobby the government collectively via the letter. The timing of the letter, which has been published by Heathrow, is particularly important. The government is due to timetable a vote on the airport's national policy statement, which is going to set out its airport infrastructure policy, including Heathrow expansion, in the first half of the year. Heathrow regularly has meetings with business lobby groups, and its position is that the groups sent the letter out of a mutual desire to get the vote tabled, the BBC understands. It was expected that the vote would happen before the summer recess, which runs from the 24th of July to the 4th of September. The business lobby groups and Heathrow want the vote to go ahead as planned before September, because then MPs will be more preoccupied with Brexit. The terms for Britain to leave the EU need to be concluded by the 30th of September 2018 under a timetable set by the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier. The UK vote on the airport's national policy statement will be tabled after a process is set in motion by Transport Secretary Chris Grayling. He in turn has been lobbying business groups for support for the government's Heathrow expansion plans to try to get MPs to vote in favour. Conservative MPs are likely to vote with the government. Unions and many Labour MPs also support expansion, but the Labour leadership in the past has come out against Heathrow expansion on environmental grounds. London has introduced a contactless payment scheme for buskers in what the organisers claim is a world first. In adding to tossing loose change into a box, passers-by can use card readers to make contactless payments. It has been launched in partnership with Swedish tech firm iZettle, bought this month by US payments giant PayPal. Now more Londoners will be able to show their support to the capital's brilliant, talented street performers, said London Mayor Sadiq Khan. He announced on Sunday that the scheme will be rolled out across the city after successful trials. Charlotte Campbell, a full-time busker, was part of the trial and says that after 2 weeks, it had a significant impact on contributions. The card readers, which plug into smartphones and other devices, allow tap to donate fixed payments. More people than ever tap to donate whilst I sing, and often when one person does, another follows, Miss Campbell said. The organisation Busk in London, which is working with iZettle on the scheme, said it would be made available to buskers in all the capital's boroughs over the coming months. Using card readers for online payments is becoming increasingly popular among small traders and charities who cannot afford the infrastructure traditionally used for credit card payments. Earlier this month, PayPay announced it was buying iZettle for $2.2 billion or £1.6 billion. Founded in Stockholm in 2010, iZettle started out selling credit and debit card readers, but has more recently expanded with an e-commerce platform which tracks items such as sales and inventory for its customers. Now, with the bank TSB, online payment problems are continuing for those customers 5 weeks on from the IT switchover that has caused a crisis at the bank. Some current account customers and some business clients still face problems making internet or app payments. The bank said experts from computing giant IBM, called in during the first week of the fiasco, would remain for as long as it takes to fix the errors. It has not estimated how long it will be until services return to normal. The ongoing problems come in a week when some customers have reported fraudsters emptying their accounts. In addition, some customers who have switched away from the bank have reported receiving letters suggesting they have died. TSB said it had teams working around the clock to fix the issues, which began after the migration of data on TSB's 5 million customers from former owner Lloyd's IT system to a new one managed by current TSB owner Sabadell. Among the most serious are the payment problems faced by business banking customers, such as Sam Watterson, who runs a lettings firm in Leeds. He has spent recent weeks manually entering details into a spreadsheet, as it is impossible to download a file from his account. He is also struggling to set up new payments to landlords. This is creating a backlog of payments. We are muddling through, but it is taking forever to do something simple, he said. He said he had reported the issues to TSB, but had not heard anything back. We are asking business banking customers who may be experiencing problems making payments online to contact us so we can help them meet their payments obligations, such as salaries and invoicing to suppliers, a spokeswoman for TSB said. We are really sorry for any inconvenience this may cause, and we understand how challenging the past few weeks may have been for some of our business customers. No customer will be left out of pocket as a result of any issues experienced. On Friday, BBC Radio 4's You and Yours revealed how one TSB customer watched thousands of pounds in wedding savings being stolen from his internet account as he waited on hold for the bank's fraud department. Ben Alford from Weymouth in Dorset said it took more than 4.5 hours to get through to TSB, by which time most of the money had gone. TSB had said it had put in additional resources to support customers. Financial website Money Saving Expert also reported how some customers have received letters incorrectly suggesting account holders had died. Several former TSB customers reported receiving letters from various organisations, including local councils, saying they were sorry to hear of their passing. The letters also said that their direct debits had been cancelled. Customers had then got in contact with those who had sent them the letters and had been informed that TSB had told them that they had died. We are aware there was an issue with a small number of our customers switching from or closing their account with TSB, which resulted in an error in the cancellation or transfer of some of their direct debits, a TSB spokeswoman said. We are deeply sorry for any distress caused. We are working to rectify this issue, and we are really sorry for the inconvenience caused. Text message balance alerts, such as when customers are going into the red, are not working. Meanwhile, some customers are receiving redress. The case of Lorna Connolly, formerly Lorna McHale, was raised with TSB Chief Executive Paul Pester during his appearance before the Treasury Committee of MPs after the BBC revealed how she was unable to access her account days before her wedding day. She said she had to ring to grovel with suppliers for the wedding, including the DJ, the wedding car provider, and those doing her hair and makeup, all of which were small businesses. TSB rang the day before her wedding to offer her compensation. They gave me £100 as a gesture of goodwill, which didn't really alleviate any of the stress, but I was flustered and just accepted, she said. She said her account was mostly back to normal, a conclusion yet to be the case for every TSB customer. The Scottish Affairs Committee criticises RBS for bank closures. RBS has failed to appreciate the impact of its decision to close dozens of branches in Scotland, a report by MPs has found. The Scottish Affairs Committee described the move as a devastating blow for communities affected. It urged the bank, which is majority owned by the taxpayer, to halt bank plans to add up to 62 branches. RBS said the closures were in response to the increasing numbers of customers using mobile and online banking. However, the plans have attracted fierce criticism from local communities, business groups and politicians. In December, RBS announced it would shut a total of 62 branches north of the border. 10 of them were later given a stay of execution until at least the end of this year, pending a review. The committee report said the closures would remove vital services relied upon by businesses and disproportionately affect vulnerable customers. It stated, "We are not convinced that RBS fully appreciate the damage these closures will do to the communities and businesses that rely on these branches." In its report, the committee argued that impact assessments carried out by the bank did not provide enough information on the situation with individual branches. It said, for example, whether customers have access to a suitably reliable broadband connection to allow them to use online banking, the practicality of travelling to the next nearest branch, or the effective availability of alternative services such as mobile branches and community bankers. Without this information, we do not see how these documents can be said to have properly assessed the impact of the closures on customers, businesses and communities. Community Chairman Peter Wishart said the loss of a permanent bank and the services it provides cannot be replicated by the occasional visit of a mobile bank or community banker. In rural areas, the local branch is an essential, whose withdrawal is compounded by poor access to broadband and journey time to the next available facility. RBS did not consult adequately and even at this last stage should reverse their decision to close these branches. RBS said it welcomed the publication of the report. In a statement, it said, "We would like to reassure our customers and the committee that we do understand closing a branch can be difficult for some customers and colleagues who work in these branches. It's not an easy decision. We have listened to customers, colleagues, communities and elected representatives and welcome the committee's recognition that we have engaged and responded." The bank said it was responding to changes in the way its customers banked, with branch usage falling by 44% since 2011, while 7 in 10 customers were now using mobile or online banking. It added, "We recognise that every customer will have different banking needs, and we are committed to ensuring all our customers receive the best possible service." The Scottish Affairs Committee also urged the UK government to use any influence as the majority shareholder to pressure RBS to reconsider its closure programme. Mr Wishart added the UK government has an obligation to represent the interests of the citizens and communities in Scotland that will be harmed by the swathe of bank closures. They own 70% of the shares in this company and should use any influence they have to try and have this decision reversed. An HM Treasury spokesman said, "The decision to open and close branches is a commercial decision taken by the management team of each bank. The government does not intervene in these decisions, but we understand the impact that closures can have on communities and people's jobs. Banks must now give customers as much notice as possible when a branch is closing and ensure they are made aware of the options they have locally to continue to access banking services." In ticketing news, Ed Sheeran says his strong approach on secondary tickets for his gigs will benefit fans in the long run. People who turned up to the first dates of his UK tour in Manchester with resold tickets were told they were invalid and had to buy new ones. The only people it is going to harm in the end is the touts, Ed told Newsbeat at the biggest weekend in Swansea. I hate the idea of people paying more than face value for tickets when you get them at face value. Some fans were angry at their tickets not being valid, including one woman who said she was fuming after apparently paying £400 for 2 tickets. Secondary ticketing is when people buy tickets for a gig and resell them, usually using sites such as Viagogo, StubHub, Get Me In, and Seatwave. Consumer rights group the Fanfare Alliance says these sites are used by ticket touts, resulting in something which is hugely damaging to the music industry. When Ed Sheeran's latest tour dates went on sale, he stated that secondary tickets would not be valid. His promoters have cancelled more than 10,000 tickets that were resold on Viagogo, often at vastly inflated prices, for 18 dates in the Stars Sold Out tour. In Manchester, fans with resold tickets were asked to pay £80, which is the face value of the ticket. Their original ticket was then stamped invalid. Ed says those people are legally able to get a refund from the secondary ticket site. It's all been done properly. I'm not trying to stitch fans up, he told us. People just need to start taking a stance, and within 2 or 3 years, companies like Viagogo are going to be kaput, no longer in business. Loads of acts are doing it. Arctic Monkeys, Adele, no one is okay with it. The fans are not okay with secondary tickets. Sometimes you can spend all that money and it is a fake ticket. I think it's just about being strong and not giving in. Ed's manager Stuart Galbraith agreed, telling Newsbeat, "Everyone who has been through this process has been really grateful. We've had no complaints. We are just trying to make sure people don't get ripped off. We'll help you to get your refund off Viagogo and other secondary sites." Viagogo directed the BBC to the FAQ section of its website when asked for a response to this story. It said it protests against concert promoters who deny entry to fans using resold tickets. These types of entry restrictions are highly unfair and, in our view, unenforceable and illegal, it says. Newsbeat has put Ed Sheeran's comments to Viagogo and is waiting a response. Hundreds of passengers are stranded at Stansted Airport after lightning strikes damaged aircraft fueling systems, grounding flights. Flights have been cancelled or delayed, and some are being diverted away from landing. The airport said its aircraft fueling system was unavailable for a period earlier due to a lightning strike. A spokeswoman said engineers had since restored the system, but flights may be diverted, delayed or cancelled. We apologise for the inconvenience and advise all passengers to check with their airlines for the latest flight updates, she said. Passengers who have described being stuck on planes for hours, waiting to take off, while others are waiting in an already crowded departure lounge for information. The problems occurred as thunderstorms and torrential rain swept across the UK overnight during the bank holiday weekend and the start of school half-term. BBC Look East reporter Richard Daniel said Ryanair had announced at the airport that all its flights are fully booked for the next 2 days, meaning passengers whose flights have been cancelled would not be able to rebook during that period. Passenger Steve Childs told the BBC his Ryanair flight to Madrid had been due to take off at 8:25 a.m. British Standard Time. Mr. Childs, who is travelling with his wife and daughter, said he has had to get information from social media. There has been no announcements, he said. Flights which were due to leave at 6 a.m. still haven't left. We are in the middle of the departure lounge. Fortunately, we have seats, but there are lots of people without. Rob Liddell, who was due to fly out on a family holiday to Rome for 3 days, said communication had not been great. He found out his flight had been cancelled via a phone app, despite the departure board saying it had only been delayed. Mr. Liddell said that after standing in a queue of several hundred people waiting to attempt to rebook our flights, Ryanair had announced all flights are fully booked for next 2 days, so that's us heading home. He said people at the airport were pretty calm and resigned to the fact that this has happened. He added that there were thousands of people in the departure lounge and lots of young families in corridors. April Peake from Oxford said her Ryanair flight to Lisbon was due to take off at 9:45 a.m. It is so hot in the departure lounge, she said. I feel like I've made it to Portugal, but I haven't. She said people were bored and frustrated. Flights keep disappearing from the information boards, and there are very few, very quiet announcements listing the flight numbers of all the cancelled flights, she added. The lounge was thick with people a little while ago, but it seems to be thinning out a little bit now. Frustrated passengers have been venting their thoughts on social media. Twitter user Tracy Mitchell said her niece and nephew's flight had been cancelled, meaning they were no longer going on their cruise. Ryanair would not comment on its bookings, but a spokesman said all affected customers are being contacted and advised of their options of a full refund, a free transfer onto the next available flight, or a free transfer onto an alternative routing. He added, "We apologise to all customers affected by these disruptions, which are entirely beyond our control." The owner of Boots has rejected claims it overcharged the NHS for a mouthwash used by cancer patients. An investigation by the Times newspaper said a high street chemist charged the NHS £3,220 for the medicinal mouthwash, which can cost as low as £93. Walgreens Boots Alliance said its businesses complied with the law. NHS England said pharmacies should seek to secure best value, while ministers have asked the Competition and Markets Authority to consider investigating. The mouthwash used by patients with sores caused by chemotherapy is among of groups known as specials. Specials are unlicensed medicines for non-standard treatments. The Times claims Boots has benefited from a legal loophole that allows suppliers to set their own prices for these drugs. The paper says the mouthwash was ordered from Alliance Healthcare, a supplier owned by Boots' parent company. From 2013 to 2017, the paper says Boots charged £3,219 to supply 3 200ml bottles, then £3,220 for the same amount, £1,843 for an 800ml treatment, £1,989.12 for 800ml, and £6,374.25 for 2,600ml. Meanwhile, in 2016, a pharmacy in West Sussex charged £31.14 for one 200ml bottle, the equivalent of £93.42 for 600ml. So what are specials? Specials are unlicensed medicines that do not have central marketing authorization either in the UK or Europe. They have not been assessed by the regulatory authority for safety or efficacy in the same way as licensed medicines. They are manufactured, imported or distributed to meet the needs of an individual patient. They are only supposed to be prescribed when there is no alternative licensed medicine available. More than 75,000 different formulations of specials are prescribed each year. They might make up about 1% of all prescriptions. Walgreens Boots Alliance has not disputed the figures, but says it has not overcharged the health service. The company said the bespoke nature of specials, often ordered at short notice, results in the final cost. We firmly reject accusations of overcharging the NHS, a Walgreens Boots Alliance spokesperson said. Our senior company leaders have already recently met with officials from the Department of Health to discuss the specials products. The statements added that specials make up an extremely small proportion of the total items dispensed in the UK. The Times reports that specials cost the health service about £75 million a year. The NHS in England spends about £16 billion a year on drugs. Health Minister Steve Bryn said the public would take an extremely dim view of any company found to be exploiting our NHS and patients. Where there is evidence of collusion between pharmacies and suppliers, swift action will be taken to claw back funds and penalise offenders, he added. The newspaper also reported that the NHS has paid Various pharmacies, £2,645 for basic sleeping pills that can cost £1 and £3,200 for arthritis painkillers that have been charged at less than £1 per pack. An NHS England spokesperson said local GP groups are right to clamp down on situations where a company is attempting to rip off patients and taxpayers. Any company that does so should get the full force of civil and, where appropriate, criminal enforcement. Around 3 million people were in arrears on an essential bill last year, with women most likely to have fallen behind on payments, a charity has said. Priority bills include essential household payments such as council tax, energy bills, and mortgage repayments. Debt charity Step Change said that women accounted for 2/3 of its clients who had missed one of these payments. The estimate comes as the latest figures from the UK's high street banks show a rise in credit card spending. The data from UK Finance, which represents the major banks, said card spending in April was 9.8% higher than a year earlier at £10.1 billion. Outstanding levels of credit card debt grew by 5.2% over the year, although this was down from an annual growth rate of 5.7% in March. Step Change said that an estimated 9.3 million people used credit last year to meet a household need. Many were taking on more credit to deal with priority bills, the charity said. Arrears on these bills were most commonly on council tax, 30% of cases, followed by water bills 23.7%, rent 21.5%, and a mortgage 20.6%. These arrears were more common among women than men. Among the possible reasons for this were the increased potential for disruption to their income, lower average incomes compared to men, and the prevalence of single parents among those in debts, the majority of whom were women. Peter Tutton, head of policy at Step Change, said there is a huge opportunity for utilities, providers, local authorities, landlords, and other creditors to reflect on how they can create more flexible and personalised payment schedules for people whose incomes fluctuate. For example, higher payments in some months and lower payments in others could help people to work around foreseeable financial pinch points in the year and potentially help them to keep up their agreed payments. Now, in terms of food packaging, the giant Tetra Pak has said plastic straws serve a vital function in cartons and should not be banned. Plastic straws can be recycled together with used cartons if they are pushed back into the box, the company have said. Tetra Pak is developing a paper straw, but it said it would still be some time before it was widely available. Its statement comes amid growing concerns about the effects of plastic pollution, in part helped by programs such as the BBC's Blue Planet 2. Last month, Tetra Pak said its paper straw would be ready before the end of the year. In the meantime, therefore, we will continue to make the case that straws attached to our packages serve a vital functional purpose and that bans are not the best way to tackle this issue, given the consequences of doing so. Charles Brand, Tetra Pak's Executive Vice President for Product Management and Commercial Operations, told the BBC. The Swedish firm sent a letter to its customers in April saying that it made the paper straw announcement to address the rising tide of negative public opinion towards plastic straws and government drives around the world to reduce their use, according to the FT. For our own part, we will continue to make the case to politicians, regulators and environmental groups that the plastic straws attached to portion-sized carton packages serve an entirely functional purpose, the letter from Mr. Brand said. In April, over 40 companies signed up to a pact with the UK government to cut plastic pollution over the next 7 years. Shareholders of fast food restaurant chain McDonald's recently rejected a proposal to report on its use of plastic straws. Public opinion began to turn on plastic after David Attenborough's BBC series Blue Planet 2 was broadcast in November. The first episode of the series, which was viewed over 14 million times, highlighted the damaging impact that single-use plastic is having on the world's oceans, including a case of a pilot whale calf which was thought to have died after consuming its mother's milk, contaminated with toxic chemicals from plastic. The Australian owner of Homebase has sold the DIY chain for £1, ending its disastrous foray into the UK. Wesfarmers paid $340 million for the retailer 2 years ago, but losses and other costs will bring its total bill to around $1 billion. The chain is being bought by restructuring specialist Hilco, which rescued music chain HMV in 2013. The 24 stores that have been converted to the Bunnings brand will revert to the Homebase name. Richard Lim of Consultancy Retail Economics said the Wesfarmers takeover had been an unbelievable disaster due to woeful management decisions, clumsy execution, and a misguided perception of the UK market. He expected the restructuring would result in store closures and more job losses on the high street. Homebase has around 250 stores and 11,500 workers. Dave Gill, National Officer at Shop Workers Trade Union US Door, said staff in Homebase stores are extremely worried for the future after company's ownership changes hands yet again. Clearly, the sale for just £1 is very disturbing. I am in touch with the company and we are seeking urgent meetings to secure jobs. This must go down as one of the most disastrous retail acquisitions ever, a textbook example of how not to do it. The Australian firm thought they could show the Brits how to do DIY, so confident they immediately sacked Homebase's senior management team. That was a huge mistake. They then began to strip out the soft furnishings that were popular at Homebase. Instead, Bunnings opted for no-frills DIY sheds, but it failed to understand the UK market and losses soon started to mount. Deteriorating economic conditions certainly didn't help. The few stores that were trading as Bunnings will convert back to the Homebase brand as this company makes an ignominious retreat. The new owners will need to act fast to stem the losses across the Homebase business, which will inevitably mean store closures and job losses ahead. Wesfarmers has admitted making a number of self-induced blunders, such as underestimating winter demand for a range of items, from heaters to cleaners and storage, and dropping popular kitchen and bathroom ranges. Rob Scott, Chief Executive of Wesfarmers, said the UK market proved to be very competitive, with quite challenging retail conditions. Asked whether investors could trust Australia's biggest retail group with future acquisitions, he said he hoped the disposal demonstrates the capability of our team to act decisively. Wesfarmers expects the disposal to cost up to $230 million. It will be entitled to 20% off any future sale of the business. Homebase Chief Damien McLaughlin, who will stay on as part of the management buyout funded by Hilco, marks an exciting new chapter for the retailer. With Hilco's support, we have the commitment of an experienced partner, substantial additional capital, stability for the business, and the opportunity to reinvigorate a brand that has been a mainstay of UK retail for over 40 years, he said. Hilco was given a turnaround of the Decade Award last year for its revival of HMV. The newly branded Bunnings store in Peng, South East London, opened its doors with some fanfare in March, including an appearance by Peppa Pig. But now that Bunnings has failed to bring home the bacon for Wesfarmers, the store will become a Homebase once more. Shoppers at the store seem to be bemused. Carpenter Paul Gainford said, "I'm a bit gutted that it is going back to Homebase. It has got everything here, things that you can't get elsewhere." Other shoppers agreed that some ranges such as tools and plants had improved since the switchover. Ultimately, they were keen for the store to stay open in some form under the new ownership. "There is not much choice around here, so it is important that places like this remain," said Wayne O.B., who was buying plants and compost for his garden. Retired banker Neil Rank, 60, was concerned about the impact on workers. "There seems to be more staff here now it is a Bunnings, but whenever costs are cut, it is staff costs that they look at first." And lastly, Fiat Chrysler is recalling 4.8 million US vehicles over a defect that could prevent drivers from turning off cruise control. It warned owners, including those outside the US, not to use the function until they get software upgrades. The Italian-American car maker said no injuries or crashes were related to the large recall campaign, but it had one report of a driver of a 2017 Dodge Journey being unable to turn cruise control off. The firm said an unlikely sequence of events could lead to drivers being unable to cancel cruise control. Fiat Chrysler said drivers could still stop their car by continuously putting on the brakes or by shifting into neutral gear and braking. Most of the vehicles being recalled cover models built between 2014 and 2018. Some markets outside the US, including Canada and Mexico, are also affected, but the total number of vehicles included globally is not known. The firm said it planned to contact affected customers. Among the vehicles being recalled are the Chrysler 200, Chrysler 300, Chrysler Pacifica, Dodge Charger, Dodge Challenger, Dodge Journey, Dodge Durango, Jeep Cherokee, Jeep Grand Cherokee, Jeep Wrangler, and Ram 1500, 2500, and 3500, pickup trucks, and Ram 3500, 4500, and 5500 cab trucks. Some markets outside the US and Canada are also recalling certain Fiat Fremont models. The problem, Fiat Chrysler said that at times its cruise control systems automatically start accelerating to help cars keep at the same speed, such as when going up a hill. If that automatic acceleration happens at the same time as a short circuit in the car's electrical system, a driver could be unable to switch off cruise control. Fiat Chrysler said vehicles may be put in park once stopped, which turns cruise control off. The car maker, which in 2015 was hit with penalties from US regulators totaling $175 million or £131 million for safety lapses, did not say how much the recalls would cost. So what do you think of the news so far today? What about the Ed Sheeran debacle with the tickets being sold at excessive prices and him trying to act upon it? What about this Fiat Chrysler situation with the cruise control working on its own? The situation with Heathrow Airport, the Stansted problems with the lightning strikes, the fire issues. Leave your comments down below, whatever you think of the situation. Make sure to subscribe. I will be doing more of these news feeds. I hope you enjoyed them.